My name is Lawan. I'm 72 years old, and I want to begin tonight by telling you something about emotions that changed everything I thought I understood about healing. Something that took me most of my adult life to learn, and that, once learned, made the years of struggle that came before it seem almost avoidable. Not because the struggle was unnecessary, because the struggle was pointing toward this truth the entire time, and I kept looking away from it. The truth is this: emotions do not need to be fixed, they need to be felt. And the difference between those two orientations, between the life organized around fixing what you feel and the life organized around genuinely feeling what is there, is the difference between a life of chronic emotional management and a life of actual healing. I spent 40 years in the first kind of life, trying to fix my emotions, trying to replace the difficult ones with more acceptable ones, trying to think my way out of feelings I didn't want to have, trying to manage and strategize and discipline myself into a more comfortable emotional landscape. And nothing healed, not permanently. Not at the level where the healing would have mattered, because you cannot fix your way to healing. You can only feel your way there. Let me tell you what the Buddhist understanding of emotion has taught me that nothing else did. The Buddha observed something that Western psychology has only recently begun to confirm, that emotions are not problems. They are information. They are the body and mind's way of communicating with you about what is happening, about what matters, about where something needs attention. And when you treat them as problems to be solved rather than information to be received, you don't eliminate them. You suppress the information. The emotion goes underground. It stops being visible, but it continues to operate. From the underground, from the places you have pushed it because you decided you should not be feeling it, it influences everything. Your decisions, your relationships, your physical health, your capacity for genuine connection, your ability to be present in your own life. And the healing that you are looking for, the genuine, lasting, deep healing that you sense is possible, cannot happen there, cannot happen in the underground. It can only happen in the light, in the seeing, in the genuine, full, compassionate encounter with what is actually there. The first step of the Buddhist approach to emotional healing is one that sounds so simple that most people dismiss it before they have actually tried it. Feel the emotion as a physical sensation rather than a story. This is the key that unlocks everything else. When a difficult emotion arises, the mind's immediate response is almost always to tell a story about it, to explain it, to justify it, to build a narrative around it that makes sense of why it is there and what it means. And this narrative, while it can sometimes be useful, is most often what keeps the emotion from completing its natural process. Because the narrative is not the emotion. The narrative is the mind's commentary on the emotion. And while the narrative runs, the emotion itself cannot be fully felt, cannot complete its cycle, cannot move through and pass the way emotions are designed to do when they are allowed to be what they are. The practice is to locate the emotion in the body rather than the mind, to feel it physically, to find where it lives as sensation, the tightening in your chest that is grief, the heat in your face that is shame, the hollow feeling in your belly that is fear, the constriction in your throat that is unexpressed pain. These are not metaphors, they are real physical experiences. And when you bring your attention to them directly, when you feel them as sensation rather than think them as story, something important becomes possible. You can be with the emotion without being consumed by it. You can witness it without being identical to it. You can allow it to move through you the way it wants to move, toward its own completion, its own natural resolution, which it always reaches when it is genuinely felt rather than managed or suppressed or narrated. The second step is what the Buddhist tradition calls allowing. And this is where most people stop, because allowing feels counterintuitive. It feels like the opposite of healing. It feels like surrendering to the emotion rather than overcoming it. But this is the fundamental misunderstanding that keeps emotional healing just out of reach. Allowing is not the same as wallowing. Allowing does not mean immersing yourself in the story of the emotion, replaying what caused it, reinforcing why you are justified in feeling it, adding more content to the narrative. Allowing means letting the feeling be there, as sensation, in your body, without fighting it, without requiring it to be different or to leave before it is ready, without adding the secondary suffering of judging yourself for having it, just allowing it to exist fully as what it is, and discovering, often for the first time, that the emotion, when genuinely allowed, does not expand to fill everything. It moves, it shifts, it changes quality. It often passes more quickly than any suppression strategy ever achieved, because it was never trying to stay, it was trying to complete itself. And the only thing that was preventing completion was the resistance to allowing it to be fully felt. If something in what I'm sharing is touching something you have been carrying, if you feel in these words a different way of relating to your own emotional life than the way you have been living, stay with me, because the deepest practice is still to come. And if this space is offering you something real, return to it. Return when the old impulse to fix and manage your emotions reasserts itself, because it will. And having a place to return to, a voice that says it is safe to feel, is part of what makes healing actually possible. The third step is the practice of compassionate witnessing. This is the quality of attention that makes the difference between feeling your emotions in a way that heals and feeling them in a way that simply prolongs the suffering. Compassionate witnessing is not therapeutic detachment. It is warm presence. It is the quality of attention you would bring to a child who is in pain. Not trying to fix the pain immediately, not telling the child they shouldn't be feeling what they are feeling, not explaining to them why the pain is irrational, simply being there, seeing the pain, allowing it to be what it is. Communicating through the quality of your presence that the pain is safe to be felt here, that it does not need to be hidden or minimized or fixed before you will stay. This is the quality of attention that emotional healing requires. And when you learn to bring it to yourself, to be the compassionate witness of your own emotional experience, something that was closed begins to open. Something that was defended begins to relax. And the emotion, meeting this quality of safe, non-judgmental presence, completes itself in the way it always wanted to, in the way it always would have if safety had been available. The fourth step addresses something specific that keeps many people from genuinely healing their emotional lives. The confusion between feeling emotions and being controlled by them. Many people resist the practice of fully feeling their emotions because they believe that feeling them fully will mean being overwhelmed by them. That if they let themselves really feel the grief, they will drown in it. That if they let themselves really feel the anger, they will be consumed by it. That if they let themselves really feel the fear, they will be paralyzed by it. This fear of the feeling is often stronger than the feeling itself, and it is based on a misunderstanding. Feeling an emotion fully and being controlled by it are not the same thing. In fact, they are almost opposites. The emotions that control you most powerfully are the ones you have not fully felt. The ones that are running from the underground, shaping your choices and your relationships and your capacity for presence without your conscious awareness. And the emotions that you allow yourself to feel fully, that you receive with compassionate attention and allow to complete their natural cycle, lose their power to control. Not because you have suppressed them, because you have metabolized them, because the energy they carried has been processed and integrated rather than stored in the underground where it was running your life without your knowing. The fifth step is about the relationship between emotional healing and the body. And this is something the Buddhist tradition has understood for thousands of years that modern science is now confirming. Emotional healing is not primarily a mental process. It is a physical one. Emotions are held in the body, in the tension patterns, in the breathing habits, in the posture and the gesture, and the physical organization of a life. And emotional healing requires working at the level of the body, not just the level of thought and insight and cognitive understanding. This does not mean that understanding has no place in healing. It does. But understanding alone, without the physical component, without the genuine felt sense of the emotion in the body, without the breathing into it and the allowing it to move through the physical form, is partial healing. It is the map without the territory. It is knowing about healing rather than undergoing it. The practice is to bring the body into every emotional healing encounter, When you are working with a difficult emotion, when you are trying to allow and witness rather than suppress and manage, bring your attention explicitly into your body. Notice where the emotion lives physically. Breathe into that place, consciously, slowly. Not to make the sensation go away, to acknowledge it, to let your body know that you know it is there, that you are not going to keep pushing it down, that it is safe to be what it is. And often with this quality of breathing attention, with this acknowledgement of the physical reality of the emotion, something shifts. The sensation changes quality, softens, moves, sometimes discharges as tears, or as a shaking, or as a deep exhale that releases something that has been held for a very long time. This is healing, not as metaphor, as actual physiological transformation. The sixth step is perhaps the most important for lasting healing. It is the practice of integration, which is what happens after the feeling, after the allowing, after the compassionate witnessing, after the emotion has moved through. What you do in the space that the emotion leaves behind is what determines whether the healing is lasting or whether the same pattern will return in the same form. Integration is the practice of incorporating what the emotion showed you. Because every emotion, when genuinely felt, leaves information, an understanding, a clarity about what matters, about where a boundary was violated, about where a need has been unmet, about where a wound lives that needs care. This information is the gift inside the difficult feeling, and integration is the practice of receiving the gift, of asking, now that I have felt this fully, what do I understand that I didn't before? What does this feeling show me about what I need? What does it clarify about what matters? And then, with gentleness and patience, beginning to act from that understanding, not dramatically, in the small daily ways that honor what the emotion was pointing toward. My name is Lawan. I'm 72 years old. I live in a small temple where emotions are not managed or optimized or worked on. They are received. They are given space. They are allowed to be what they are and to complete what they came to complete. Not because we have achieved some elevated state where difficult emotions no longer arise. They do, frequently, but because we have learned to receive them differently, with less resistance, with more compassion, with the understanding that what feels difficult is not what needs to be eliminated, but what needs to be heard. And in that hearing, in that genuinely compassionate reception of whatever is arising, something that I can only describe as natural healing occurs. Not the healing that results from fixing, the healing that results from finally allowing what has always been trying to complete itself to complete itself, in the only way it ever could, by being genuinely, fully, compassionately felt. Tell me in the comments, which emotion have you been managing instead of feeling? not to judge it, to name it, because naming it honestly is often the first breath of genuine allowing. And that first breath, that small movement in the direction of feeling rather than fixing, is how natural healing actually begins.